All right, we are live, and I am just super stoked for today's call. Um, Between some old friends of mine, we all connected during Go for Your Win 3, and that was kind of the birth of this podcast, these conversations. They both have co-hosted on the Welcome to the Winner Circle. My co-host today, Tom Caserto, stuntman, drummer, has been a guest. Um, and now the spotlight turns to our guest today, who will be interviewing our friend, an entrepreneur, a connector, a neuroscience expert, and certified flow state coach. Welcome to the Winner Circle, Andréa Karam.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, Derek.
Yes, and it's funny, like a little serendipitous moment is the episode you co-hosted um, was with Tom.
Yes.
You said, okay.
Yes. We figured out it's been 3 years.
Yeah. So, the goal of these conversations, as you both know, is to really uplift, inspire, and empower everyone tuning in to move forward with greater faith and belief in themselves on their hero's journey ahead. We're all on one. And this first question sets us up on a really positive vibe. And that's, Andrea, what do you love about your current world right now? Not about all the external chatter, the news, the media, but what do you love about your personal world in this moment now?
Great question. What I love about my personal world right now is the connection I have with myself and with my body, my mind, my soul, and that I would call it a certain intimacy. I really spent the last few years really building a deep intimacy with myself, and I see it as a relationship. And so I know that whatever is going on in the outside world, I always have that inner connection with myself. Kind of if I'm my own best friend, my own lover, my own supporter, and many other things. So that's it.
That's incredible. How has that changed since when we last connected 3 years ago? Who were you then, and who are you now?
So 3 years ago, I really was starting out on this personal growth, spiritual journey where I had signs, I had a sense that there was so much more to life than what Andrea back then thought there was. I had interests already that I just kept on pursuing the last few years. But what really happened is me jumping into the unknown and really following my heart and following my gut 100%, not knowing what would happen, which led me to living 2 years in Costa Rica, which led me to all the projects I'm working on now. And so I think between then and now, it's going really with that drive, that subconscious mind guiding me and not overthink things and having the freedom and the space to do so. That was the biggest change, because before that I was more in the structure. I was studying, I was working, but the last 2 years I've just been doing what I wanted to do.
Wow, that's so incredible. And in what you're doing, what is your mission? What is the mission and all the roles that you hold, whether that be entrepreneur, connector, neuroscience expert, flow state coach, friend, daughter? What is your citizen of the world? What is your overarching mission that threads amongst all your roles?
I would say that my mission is to help co-create a word in flow, because I really saw the power, and we'll get more into what flow is, but I really saw the power of getting into a flow state on a more con- on a more task to task activity level, but also getting into flow with life, with the whole universe, and entering a dance with life where you're co-creating with all of life. And
Hmm.
it's a way of being and a way of living I've been experiencing, not individually and also in group flow with other people. And I want to help other people tap into that. It's tap into a higher intelligence. So I would say that's my mission right now. And I
Uh-huh.
my mission for a long term.
Yeah, and let's kind of peer a lens at the origins to this fascination with flow. I don't know where the origin story of this is. So start where you wish. But you were a student at McGill studying neuroscience. Maybe your spark was lit there, maybe before. And then once that spark, how you unraveled, how you started pulling at that thread and just delving deeper into that world. So yeah, what's the origin story to this fascination with flow? And yeah, you can maybe start with even just defining what that is for those not as sure.
So I'll start with my origin story and then I'll define what it is,
Yeah,
because I think it's defined in the literature and then I have my own experience of it and how I explain it now.
perfect.
And so for me, I started having what I called flow experiences really through traveling. I've traveled my whole life, but especially around, I think it was 2019, I went and studied abroad in Sydney in Australia, and it was the first time in my life where I really had complete freedom on what I would do each and every day. And I really started following my intuition, following my gut, and following my highest excitement. So what am I most excited to do today? And through that, I started meeting the right person at the right time. I started going to an event called Yes And, which was a full day of entrepreneurship and eye gazing and dance. And it was my first kind of event like that. And I also started going more to festivals and musical events and dance, movement, all of these kind of practices, breath work. And during all of those practices, I was experiencing a heightened state of awareness where I not only felt that I was exactly at the right place at the right time, meeting the right person, and everything was just so perfect in the now, but also I recognized that all there was the present moment and that I was fully creating it. Um, and so I would access that awareness at some times during some particular events. And when I came back home, I wondered, how do I experience this magic, this flow, this ease where everything just happens effortlessly? I have an intention, it happens. I don't need to try to push to make things happen. Um, how do I make that happen in my everyday? And at the time, I was studying neuroscience and psychology at McGill, and I discovered the work of Stephen Kotler, which is a New York Times national bestseller in the United States, who spent a lot of time with extreme adventure athletes, studying the people that perform at the highest level on this planet. So mountain skiers, surfers, mountain bikers that didn't have that much more money nor training, but on a regular basis, they would just achieve groundbreaking records and do flips that were never done before, go faster than ever before. And I really was fascinated by Kotler's work because what I described more as a spiritual experience, where I feel like I'm just aligned, like I would call it flow and alignment, he was defining it as something more scientific that can be mapped out in the brain, that can be studied, and that can be trained. And so I saw that he was building a company with another guy called Rian, who was about my age. And I really resonated with Rian. I listened to some of his podcasts. And then I decided to reach out and say, hey, I'm super passionate about what you guys are doing. I'm also studying in neuroscience. Can I work with you? I know you're starting this company. And so Rian put me to start with working on something called the Flow Bible, which was a document of all of the research on flow state that exists. So I spent like 2 months doing research on flow, but related to gratitude, mindfulness, psychedelics, spirituality, performance, learning, all of these subjects. And then I became the community experience manager for their online course platform. So all of my COVID, I was with an incredible community of peak performers, mostly entrepreneurs, that wanted to learn the science of peak performance. So through their teachings and their mentoring and their training, and through me working with one-on-one coaches and helping building online trainings and interacting with clients and doing content, I literally, like, my whole word became that word of flow and peak performance. And basically how they describe flow is a peak state of awareness where we feel and we perform at our best. So do you remember, have you ever experienced a time where you were so deeply ingrained in the conversation and all of a sudden you felt like 20 minutes, what felt like 20 minutes was actually 2 hours. And in that conversation, you created a one mind where your sense of self disappeared and ideas were just bouncing off. Or if you surf and you went surfing and when that wave hit your board, you stood up and all of a sudden you became one with the wave and you felt that adrenaline rush, like the best moment of your life. Or a flow experience could be going on a walk in nature and your mind is clear, there's no thoughts, and you really start dropping into the sensations and feeling of the wind, feeling of the smells, and again you're completely merging with the present moment. So all of those things are flow experiences. Your sense of self disappears, time distorts itself, and action merge from another. And it's in those moments that we really get to express ourselves authentically. We get to express our full creative genius. And it's in those moments that we remember who we really are and that we tap into an inner knowing and a higher intelligence that guides us. And so in creativity, they talk a lot about, for example, the muse coming and working itself through you, or saying that I feel like it was something bigger than me. Or even in group flow experiences, when let's say you're on the dance floor and the music takes over, there's this field of coherence that creates in this one mind that just everyone moves in synchrony. It's kind of an orchestra, and all the strings, all the melodies are in perfect harmony with each other. And so I was experiencing that a lot through, like I said, traveling and through music. And then I learned everything about the theory and the science and coaching through the Flow Research Collective. And then during COVID, I started feeling not really good with everything with the pandemic and just having headaches looking at screens. And I wanted to continue working with the flow research, but it wasn't really aligned because I wasn't really fulfilled in my job anymore. And the headaches were so bad. I'm like, how am I going to do like full-time on the screen? I have no idea. So I moved to Costa Rica, and the goal was to just take a month off and then just work from there. And I was in Costa Rica, and 2 weeks before I was supposed to go back to work, I had a call with Rian, and things just didn't work out. It didn't work out on his end. It didn't work out on my end. And at the time I was devastated. I was in Tamarindo, and I remember when I heard the news, I like was crying, and I'm like, what do I do in my life now? Like it's like it was hard for me because I was with Steven, I was with Rian. It was such a successful company, and just now looking at where they are, like their growth is just incredible. And for me to know that I'm letting go of this to follow what I really want to do when I have no idea how it's going to unfold was very scary. But basically I worked for another month with them, and then I was in Puerto Viejo, which is a city in the Caribbean side of Costa Rica. And that night where I had my last day on the job, I went on the water and I really prayed for healing. I'm like, what I want is to feel alive, to feel connected, like I was feeling when I was traveling. Now I like don't feel it. I feel all over the place. COVID was really hard. I feel disconnected, and I want to find back that aliveness. And as soon as I set out that intention, especially Puerto Viejo and Costa Rica, it's the vortex of energies. Like things happen really fast. I met a girl called Soul Flow on the beach who sang a lyrical poem. And as she sang it, I felt like her words were for me. She was just singing on the beach for a concert, and I was mesmerized when I listened to her. I said, oh my God, she wrote those words for me. It was about a girl that went on an adventure and that wanted to follow her heart and stepped into the unknown. And so I went and talked to her at the end, and I told her that. And she's like, my name is Soul Flow, and I teach flow arts to kids. And I'm all about the flow state. I'm like, me too. I'm all about the flow state. And basically, she invited me to an event, which was 12 hours away by car. And it just felt like I needed to go. I was able to find people for a car. I went, and I arrived in the Diamante Valley, which is a very special spot in Costa Rica, which is in the mountains up Dominical. And the Diamante Valley is hosted a lot of indigenous cultures and tribes in Costa Rica, has amazing mountains, amazing waterfalls, and healers, coaches, people more from spiritual communities that come from all around the world in one spot. And I ended up, our Airbnb was held by a guy named Orpheus, an Israeli man that built Be Home. And the first conversation I had with Orpheus was on the power of the mind and the power of manifestation. And very soon I understood that I would stay in that spot for a long time. I ended up staying 5 months, doing a retreat, and then having my first ayahuasca ceremony. And then I ended up having 4 ayahuasca ceremonies. I did a Vipassana retreat. I did long fastings of coconut water fasts, and I turned out screens. So during those 5 months, I was barely on screens, and literally my goal and my focus was on how can I be present and in my body. And I was living in this retreat center where they had a lot of events. And so I learned about acro yoga. I did a lot of dances. I learned everything I could learn from health, from Chinese medicine to more scientific traditions. And I really wanted to heal my headaches and my gut, because I've been suffering from gut issues for the last 5 years. And so I became basically a student of life and a student of my body. And I really wanted to learn everything I could about optimal health. And through that, I built a very deep connection with my body, where I started tapping into flow state more and more, but more from basically I would set out intention with my mind in the morning, and then I would be guided by my body and my subconscious during the day. And again, the timing was perfect. Everything, it's just, especially in Costa Rica, the field of energy is so dense and so pure, and we can get back into it later. I have some ideas now why places like Costa Rica are like this. I know Hawaii, Bali, there's certain energetical places on earth like this, but basically the loops between your inner space and your outer space are very, very thin. So you start really realizing how your external environment and everything that happens is a reflection of your internal space and your internal thoughts and emotional processes. And so I really dove deeper into that, the emotional work, where I got to see how when I had an experience, if I could feel the emotion, or if I could, basically that's what I did for about a year, really learn how to feel. And because I was so much more in my mind before, now I learned how to drop into the body to feel. And once I was able to feel the emotion, to love it and accept it for what it is and to let it go, or it's a block that, or a resistance that got removed and then I got what I wanted, or it's unfolded into something, a greater reality. And so with emotional work, with learning how to manage my attention, my energy, with all of my knowledge on flow states, with no screens and really slowing down and doing one thing at a time, I started mastering really what I call now the art of flow, which is, it's really an art. It's an art of how you manage your attention, how you manage your awareness, how you engage in each present moment, with what intention. And it's and the other part of it, the other part of the art of flow that's really important, other than what I just described, is play. And so I really saw the power of play. During that time, I got to be a kid again and to explore art and movement and creativity and just having a playful attitude towards life. And with all of those components and with playing with life, I saw how all of life was playing with me. And I'll take a break now because I've been talking for a while, but these are some of the things that I learned in Costa Rica during the first part of my trip.
Wow, that's incredible. Thank you so much for sharing. There's so many places we could branch off from there. Tom, do you have any curiosities about from that?
Yeah, is there a favorite flow state that you enjoy the most, of something that where you feel your best?
For me, it's dance and movement. It's on the dance floor when I get in the zone, and then I become the movement. There's no more thought. That's my favorite flow state.
That is beautiful.
Yeah, that's cool.
This
I was
place that
gonna
you're
say,
talking. Oh, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, yeah, dance has been like a huge part of my journey just the last couple months, and like I'm just so excited to delve deeper into that. Go ahead, Tom.
I was going to ask about the place. It's called Diamante Valley, Costa Rica.
Diamante. It's like
Diamante.
diamond.
Okay, that's Diamante.
Diamante.
Okay.
And so Diamante had like a very special energy, you said. So let's talk about your theory on these places in the world that have this special energy. What is that? And how do we find that? And how do we create those spaces in our lives without even having to go there?
Great question. I love it. So Costa Rica has a special energy because it comes first, it's a space that had no army. And I think just in the collective field, it really creates a safe space. And it's one of the only countries in the world with no army, I think, with Switzerland. And the thing is, Costa Rican people are very kind and very present and very connected to the earth, to themselves, to each other. And I found that in places, the other place where I found that with the people from the land is in Bali, where I really found that Balinese people are also very kind, and they have a culture of giving, and they have a culture of gratitude. And so because of that, the energy in Costa Rica is very pure. In Costa Rica, we say pura vida, which means pure life. And it's very, very much embodied by the people that live there. Another thing I would say is, so in Costa Rica, I lived in the Diamante Valley. I lived on the Osa Peninsula on a farm. Then I went back this year and I lived in Nosara, which is a blue zone, which means that it's one of the places on Earth where people live the longest on the planet. So there's a few spots like this that energetically have a very potent energy. So on one side, there's also chakras. So we say that Costa Rica is like the heart of the world. So the energy there is very motherly. You go there and you feel like you're held by Mother Earth. Like it's the first place on Earth where I really felt like I belonged on this planet through the experiences I went through. And what's more difficult in America and in Europe and in Canada is that first, especially if you're in a city, just the field of energy and all of, because there's so many people, there's so many different energies, and everyone is much more in their mind. Whereas in those places, everyone is much more connected to their body and their heart and going with and more connected to flow. And so in a city, how you find that is by finding other people with whom you resonate with and with whom you can first, I think creation and creativity is the most important thing. If you're surrounded by people that are aligned to what they really love, what they're doing, that they're creating, like that's what I'm finding in Montreal now, a community of creators. And you don't have to be an entrepreneur, but you have to surround yourself with people that are wanting to live to the fullest, are wanting to live the best life, are wanting to create, are wanting to make the most out of every moment. I really think it's about that intention more than anything else. And then you can get into that space of group flow and that special energy. So that's why Costa Rica is special and these other places are special, because it attracts people that want to be there first, and it attracts people that are willing to really follow their heart and follow their internal drive and their inner knowing, basically. And I think, and that's what I'm doing now in Montreal, is like I want to be part of this movement of people shifting the culture and creating spaces for people to experience that. And a lot of people experience that like through the dance floor, through music, but you can experience it through sports, you can experience it through your work, you can experience it through so many other ways. But that's what I would say.
So one thing that comes to mind, and I'm sure it'll come to others listening along, and like this sounds amazing. But the pushback that I'm feeling is like, okay, how do you finance these amazing adventures? And I guess like when you follow your heart, like the universe does provide, and it's having faith in that, I believe. But I don't know, from all your research and from your personal experience, how do we make these adventures and opportunities possible when so many of us are stuck in like the rat race, the 9 to 5 world, just trying to pay bills, meet ends meet. How can they step outside of that world into this like magnificent place you're dancing?
So I'll answer this question by referring to a book I've been reading, which is called The Creative Way by Julia Cameron. Have you read it?
No, I know of it.
Well, basically it's about creativity and how to step into your creative power. And she links it with a more spiritual approach, meaning that for her, creativity is God's work through you. Like you were, and that's what I believe too. You basically, how I see life is that God is experiencing itself through you as you to have the best experience of itself. And it's kind of like a show, it's a movie, it's a game that in a way was already written, but you have, with your free will, you have the power to direct it. And the more awesome your experience is, the more you'll be rewarded. And I'm not just saying those words like lightly. I've experienced it on a very deep level, and it's an inner knowing I tapped into. And a lot of time I forget, and when I get stressed out or when things don't work out, I forget this. But I do think it's how reality actually works. Also based on the fact that everything is energy and frequency, and the highest frequency is love, and source is love. And once you tap into that knowing, then it's like, okay, how do I align to the knowing that everything is love, and that this is a good work, and that God is a benevolent being, and that there's a higher power working with me. I'm not alone. Like, I might feel like I'm lonely, and I've had that many times where when I was doing the deep emotional work, I went through a lot of like loneliness, only to realize that it was only an emotion, it was only a trauma based on a past experience, and that the truth is I'm everything, I'm connected to everything, and I'm supported by all of life. And so I've had the privilege to connect to that at a very deep level, also through psychedelic journeys. And once I had that, it's finding really the balance between accepting where you are in your life and acknowledging where you are, and having love and compassion for where you are, and realizing that every one of your decisions and how you live life, there's a reason behind it. But knowing that you also have the power to change, and you have the power to dream and imagine and take small actions towards those dreams and towards those deep desires. And so an example, I'm coming back to the book, she gives an assignment of writing morning pages every day. So as soon as you wake up, you just write 3 pages of whatever comes through. And what that does is that you tap deeper into your subconscious, you tap deeper into your deep desires. And then it's funny because there's also assignments. And one of the assignment is, for example, what are creative things that you'd like to do more of? And for me, I started doing those exercises, and all these synchronicities started happening where one day I'm walking and I enter in a museum randomly, and then I found out that they have a studio with all of creative materials, and I can go and paint there. Another day, my friend invited me to a choral when one of my intention was to open my voice, and I had no idea it existed. And so I started doing exercises, putting intentions on being more creative, for example, and things started to open up. Now, for finances and money, for me, there's been a lot of ups and downs, and there's been a lot of periods where I was really tight. But what ended up happening is that even if I was in fear, and even when I didn't know how I would pay for this or this happened, then the resource came a lot of time in another way, like free accommodation or free food or an exchange or a one-time money from the government, after deep emotional work. So I started seeing how everything was related. And now the last few months I've been going through a harder time coming back here, and I was figuring out how do I launch my career, how I do things financially. And I wanted to launch my projects immediately, but my body was like, no, you have things to deal with, you have patterns to deal with, you have things to take care of also with your family, and the ways you react, the ways you think, how you manage your energy, like all of these things. And now I'm starting to put in place all the projects that I wanted to start like 3 months ago. But the last 3 months I've been mostly doing a lot of more emotional work to clear all the resistances I had. And so to answer your question, there's no one answer to how you provide to yourself financially. But what I can say is that as soon as you decide to trust and you decide to open yourself to really dreaming and imagining and connecting to your deepest desires in different ways, then life is going to help you through that, because life inherently wants you to live your most profound dreams and desires.
So well said. What a beautiful answer. Fear undoubtedly arises on this path. What have you learned through your personal and professional experience regarding fear and what to do with that?
So my relationship with fear, has been changing. I was reflecting on that actually 2 days ago about love and fear, because I had a conversation with a friend last year actually, who said all there is love and fear is an illusion. And sometimes this resonates with me, saying that when you have fear, it's not the truth. Like the only what is true is love, and that everything is okay now. Even if when you're in a challenging moment and your body reacts in a way that's fearful, that's your body reacting to it, and based on not only past patterns and past experiences, but also just based on how the brain is set up, and um, all of the fight and flight system that are set up, and the fact that we had to survive, and so we have all of those more fearful reactions for survival. A lot of how we react with fear, it's based on survival. It's based on the limbic system and the amygdala, and that flight or fight response of our ancestors needed to survive. And so there's that is deeply rooted in biology, but there's also the fact that when you have fear, you still have the power to maybe after the fearful reaction or during it, to control your nervous system, and to, for example, do some deep breathing, and to come back to the present moment and to the inner knowing that things are okay now, and that you can learn and you can improve and things can get better. And so I went through a lot of that, of having a lot of fear and having stress and having doubt and having all of those things. And what saved me is getting into flow, because when you're in flow, there's no fear, there's no doubt, there's just knowing. And so let's say I have fear, I have doubt, I have confusion. Then I go, let's say, and I go work out or I go dance. And then it takes time, but after a moment, my mind clears off, and then all the answers and all the knowing just comes. And I've experienced that so many times that now I see fear as a signal. So maybe fear means you don't have enough data, you don't have enough research yet. You have some missing points that you don't know yet. So it's creating that doubt and that fear. Okay, what do I need to know? Who do I need to talk to? What do I need to do to remove and calm the doubt and the confusion? Maybe I need more time, maybe I need more space. And then by getting into flow, it aligns me to what's the next action I need to take. So yeah.
Incredible. Tom, what are your reflections on her latest few shares? Or do you have any other outstanding questions? I see you writing down some notes as we chat here.
Yeah, I was writing down that, when in fear, go to flow. That's so true, because I've always, thought about that when I'm down or feeling any type of way. I will go work out, or now more so play the drums and get into that's the most flow I've ever had in my life, I think, is with the drums. I was with Kung Fu years ago, but now with the drums, and yeah, that idea of what you were saying about when you don't have the information, maybe that's what the fear is. That's such a cool idea to go for. I love that. Yeah,
So
that's
Stephen Pressfield, he describes resistance as that negative force in the world that prevents us from fulfilling our dreams, and that resistance arises in different forms all the time. It's inevitable. For example, maybe it's like there's a voice in you wanting to share, but then there's a part of you that doesn't share, or there's a voice telling you to go work out, go to the gym, or go play your drums, or go dance. But then there's the resistance tells you, no, just stay at home and stay in bed, or just stay at home, get high and watch a movie, or um, it prevents us from taking those steps. What have you learned about resistance, Andrea? and how did you overcome it? What have been some strategies you've learned at overcoming resistance?
So I see resistance almost, so not only resistance, but I see that there's different, I would say different Andreas. I've really experienced different parts of myself, and sometimes I had some time to adjust from, let's say, Costa Rica to coming back to Montreal, because when I'm here and I'm home, my thoughts are different. I can feel like my 17-year-old self. I can feel like my 5-year-old self. I can feel like my angry self at my mom. I can feel all those different things, and I realize when I'm in Costa Rica by myself, a lot of those feelings and those states are not there. And so I saw how environment had an impact on my psyche and my energy and the way I think and how resistance shows up. And what I see with resistance is that, so I'll give you an example.
Yeah.
I've been having a lot of resistance with going online, because with my relationship with social media and my relationship with screens, if I spend too much time on my phone, I started having a headache. And so I associated even making a post for Instagram as taking so much of my energy that a lot of time it's like not worth it. And it creates that resistance where I haven't shared much when I've lived so much. And and a lot of what I'm building with my career is my personal brand and me wanting to share. And so I was looking at this resistance, and there's different sides to it. There's Andrea that is in pain and that doesn't want to look at her screen. Okay. Then there's Andrea that's afraid of what maybe how other people would perceive her, knowing that I've been living so much and experienced so much, and I don't really know how to share it and what's relevant so that people really get a glimpse of it. So that's another part I created resistance. Then there's the part of me that's just lazy and that doesn't have the habit anymore to like post on social media. So that's a third one. So let's say these three resistances, right? So now I have the deep desires to share my message on it. And so I figured out, okay, so how do I need to set myself up, and how do I need to set my environment up so I can do that in the most easeful way and get into flow even doing that. So what I did recently, like I just got it 2 days ago, I brought myself a projector. So now I can work on looking mostly at the projector and just having less eye strains and less headaches. And I can write my text, and then maybe I'll leverage all of the social media work and I'll have someone else do it for me, so I don't have that resistance show up. And then what I'll start doing is to give myself small goals, saying, okay, I'm gonna start and doing, let's say, 1 post a week, and then like level up and do more. And as long as I know why I'm doing it and what's the intention behind it, and I just do a little more every day, and now it's becoming a priority in my consciousness, whereas before it wasn't a priority. And as long as I prioritize it, I have an intention behind it, and I do a little more every day that pushes me out of my comfort zone, not too much that I snap, but not enough that I feel bored. Like I find small ways to get into flow with it and tune in the challenge scale balance and just find excitement and play and joy with it. That's how I overcome resistance. So again, play, super important. How can you play with it? How can it be fun? Can you like do a small dance before it and then put a 20-minute timer and do the task in 20 minutes, and then as soon as you're done, you go celebrate and have a good time because you freaking did it after months of not doing it, right? So it's a mix of awareness and setting up your environment and how you engage with what you're having resistance with. And also accountability. I think if like you're wanting to do more things like working out, stuff like that, just finding other people. And for example, with the choral, I went and I'm like, I don't know how to sing, like I don't want to do this anymore. And then 1 week, 2 people are like, are we gonna see you next week? That was fun. And I'm like, maybe. And then I felt bad. kept going, so I went, and now I'm doing the concert. So
Oh wow, that's incredible. That's yeah, totally how I've been feeling with dance too. It's just so nice to step outside our comfort zone and just keep unraveling that thread and doors open that otherwise we would not have perceived.
and can I add something else? Something that's been really helping me is the concept of your future self. And you can call it the future self or the higher self, but there's a version of yourself that I've been tapping into it a lot through meditation, through dance movement, through psychedelics. But it's just a version of myself that knows, that is in the future, and that knows how do Andrea stand, how does she talk, how does she engage, like what is her ideal day, what does her, how does she feel, and I start really tuning into her. And so now it's more and more of a habit. Sometimes I forget, but it's more and more a habit of like, what would my future self or what will my higher self do? And if I get in the moment where I don't engage in the moment like I wanted to, then I reflect back on it. Okay, I reacted that way. I did that. I looked at my phone instead of going working out. Okay, how can I adjust? What did I learn from it? How can I do better next time? So
Mm.
that really helped.
Yeah, that's so amazing. You mentioned psychedelics a few times. Let's unravel that thread. What role has psychedelics played on your journey? Which ones? And just well, yeah, whatever you like to share about this topic. I'm super curious. Psychedelics have helped me on my journey, and I know they have helped Tom as well. And it's great to destigmatize these like drugs, and I'm doing hand quotations here because they're medicine, or they can be, with used with intention and proper guidance.
Psychedelics changed my life. Like really, so grateful for them, and I'm so grateful for how I was introduced to them and my relationship to them. I started really like my first. I don't know. Would you say weed is a psychedelic?
Yeah, yeah, I would say it could be. Yeah, yeah.
So for me,
Cannabis.
it really started with cannabis, and because I would smoke and then go dance. And then I would enter again that space of just being in my body and feeling my breath, feeling my movement, feeling the air at a deeper level, and then having all those downloads and insights. Like a lot of the teachings and the knowings I came across came through smoking weed and getting into flow. And so then I hadn't done mushrooms. A lot of friends, when I was in Montreal, started with mushrooms, MDMA, but I didn't feel called to it. And when I was in Costa Rica, I had my first encounters with mushrooms. We would sit in circle and do mushroom ceremonies and put an intention into it. And then ayahuasca ceremonies. And so all of my with mushrooms and ayahuasca, it was done in a very intentional, safe space that I could also be in a group, and I could use it for a specific motive. It wasn't just to have fun. And I didn't start with high doses. I don't think I've ever done a really high dose of mushrooms. But what it did is that it connected me to different states of awareness that I didn't have access to without it. So I could get into a space where, again, the self-perceived notion or thoughts of who Andrea is disappeared to open myself more to the not only to the present moment and to a deeper connection with nature and with life, but to insights and to inner knowings that I didn't have access to. And it enabled me to do a lot of the emotional processing. So with mushrooms, the first journeys, what it did is that it brought me to that childlike state of all there was is the present moment. And I could really feel. So all of a sudden I would start crying, crying, crying. And then I would laugh. And then I would go play with a tree. And then I would see details in reality that I could never see before. And then I could see how everything is vibrating and how everything is alive. And then I could see how I'm connected to everything, like the way my brain is perceiving reality is what. So basically, let's say with mushrooms, if I had a lot of experiences where you would move and then I would feel like it's me moving. So like your movement is part of me. And then I started questioning, like, if I'm perceiving that, then what does it mean about reality and the difference between the external world and my consciousness? And with all the work I was doing with psychedelics and with spending a lot of time in nature, no distractions, being present, being fully engaged in the present moment, it brought me to basically a higher awareness and just a connection with that higher intelligence that was just guiding me. And so I had experiences, deep flow experiences, where, let's say with mushrooms, I was microdosing and I would set an intention on, let's say, what I want to get done for the day. And then somehow everything, again, perfect timing, perfect, everything was so synchronized in my experience. Like I would know exactly when to go to the kitchen. I would take the knife perfectly. I would cut the fruits in such effectiveness. Then I would have a conversation that was exactly what I was thinking about like 5 minutes ago. Then it's just the timing, and I would enter that rhythm with life, with the universe. And it changed my life for also many other reasons, but that's what comes to mind right now. And then when I came back to Montreal, I really was more in the dance and movement and house music scene. And I started meeting all of these people that loved dance and movement. And now they're all my best friends. Like these are the people I hang out with. And it was through that and LSD that I started having really deeper experiences of connection with my body and with the sound. And I would see the vibration of the sounds in pixels of colors, for example, red, blue, green. And I would have downloads and insights on what to do next and where to go. And all the information was coming through me, through the dance floor and through movement and through LSD. And I also started seeing a lot of sacred geometry in all of nature, all of these patterns of flower of life in the ground. I could see faces and paintings in the trees. And so I could see a lot. My pattern recognition was enhanced. Let's say lights were moving. I could see how all the lights were moving in synchrony like one being. So it's like instead of seeing things as separate, my brain would see things as one thing, one entity, but that actually was one entity. So for example, if the lights were moving, they were all moving like one being, and I could see a face, for example. So I started realizing that there's so much more to reality than I think there is, and life and reality is more magic than we think there is.
Wow, that's powerful reflections on psychedelics and how they benefited you. And yeah, it's you're doing it. You're living the life, and this adventure that you've created for yourself, this story, this hero's journey that you're on is truly epic. And I'm just so happy to hear about all the advancements, learning, and progress on your path.
Thank you, Derek. Appreciate it.
You've met many mentors and helpers along the way. Let's take a moment to acknowledge and recognize some of them. Who have been some of your key mentors, allies, helpers, and what were the main takeaways you learned from them that you've incorporated into your current being?
So mentors, allies, I've had different mentors across the way. But I would say one of my biggest mentor has been my dad, for sure. And just learning how to live in a way that's peaceful, that's present, being humble, and also having a lot of ambition and wanting to impact the world in a positive way. And another thing that he taught me and that I've learned through being in Montreal is the power of diversity and the power of culture and the power of inclusivity. And so I think Montreal, and now I'm realizing it more now that I'm back in it, has taught me a lot about the fact that we can all co-live together in a way that's harmonious, regardless of our gender, regardless of our nationality, of our ethnicity, or of our beliefs. So my dad and the city. And then I think, yeah, Stephen Kotler and Rian, when I was really absorbing their knowledge, and all the people I worked with at the Flow Research Collective were really big mentors for me, because I really saw the power of science, and I saw the power science can have on, and I think Huberman, for example, is doing it super well when he says, like, I want to democratize science and have it accessible to a lot of people. I think that's very, very important, because once you start understanding your body and your biology and starting understanding all of these processes, it gives you a lot of power over your life, because it's not just random things, it's things that are documented and that are proven in a way, even though science always evolves. And so I think Joe Dispenza also and has been a big mentor in my health journey. And then in my spiritual journey, I've just for my spiritual journey and for the rest of my journey, I think that I've met so many people that have given me what I needed to hear at the right time, that it's hard for me to say like one mentor. It's life. I would say life is the greatest teacher, because each time I'm working through something, then life would bring me the right person with the right knowledge. But recently I have a friend called Nick, with whom I went to Costa Rica. I traveled, and that he's helped me immensely with everything that has to do with business and personal branding and defining my message and defining what I'm here to offer. So that has been huge, and he's my age, and what he's accomplishing now is just incredible. So he's a huge inspiration. And then I'm looking now at actually spending more time with more mentors and more coaches and guides to train me more in the career side. Now that I feel like I've developed a big body of knowledge and I have a lot to teach and to share, now I'm actually actively calling in mentors in the business world. And there's other people that I look up to and that I admire, but that's who come to mind right now.
Amazing. I have a few last questions that I ask every guest, and we got into that time, but I'm just gonna offer Tom an opportunity. Do you have any outstanding questions that you're curious about? Otherwise, I'll just get into these final questions, Tom.
You mentioned so much, and I feel like you were asking such perfect questions, and I can't think of any right now.
No, that's all right. So I'll ask these questions, and we can end with a reflection on today's conversation from you, Tom. So through it all, Andrea, the highs and lows that is this hero's journey, what do you feel has been the greatest life lesson you've learned on your path that you feel in this moment is most true to you and that you feel called to share?
So recently I was going through a lot of in a way doubts, because I wasn't sure if the approach I'm taking and the way I'm doing things is the best and most optimal, or if I'm actually acting from a place of resistance or a place of wounding. And I've been going through a lot of back and forth with what's wrong and why is it taking so much time for things to fall into place? And I know what it's like to be in flow and be aligned, and when I'm not, it feels really hard and hard, because in a way I feel like I'm doing something wrong. And so the biggest lesson for me recently has been just to come back to the knowings and the teachings that I was sharing, that everything is perfect now, and the present moment has all the answers. You have all the answers inside, and that love and accept yourself for where you're at and for what's happening. Have gratitude for all that you have, and keep on dreaming, keep on imagining, and keep on taking inspired actions towards your dreams, and the path will unfold. And so it's really been mastering that balance between loving and accepting myself and having compassion, and also pushing towards the direction I want to go. So it's a fine balance.
Thank you so much for that. In 3 words, Andrea, how would you describe the experience you were having on this earth? And you can elaborate on these words if you feel called, and why you chose them.
So the higher self that came to me was her name is Divine Flow Guide, and what I'm embodying on this earth is this playful dance, like Shakti, like Leela, which is a Hindu god. She's the god of play, and I really want to embody that playful flow, but that has this deep strength and this deep confidence and power and this warrior energy. And so I really relate to certain archetypes, like the warrior, like the queen, the magician, but also certain animals like the serpent, the tiger, the jaguar. And I really want to embody this, what really truly living in flow means and feel like, and teach others to do so, where basically you enter this collaboration with life, you enter the heartbeat of the universe. You're aligned with yourself, with your environment, and with the people around you. And it's really, I think it's a very ancient way of living and being, but in this society it's very new. It's embodying that feminine force, that creative force, that is able to make everything happen, but yet step back and let it unfold and let it watch. So that's who I'm wanting to embody. And I want to be both the maestro orchestrating it, the the producer watching its work, and the dancer, the player dancing it.
So maestro, producer, and dancer, would those be your 3 words
Yeah.
that describes your reality? That's such a beautiful answer. We played along with time. We've explored your past, and we explored your present. And let's fast forward to the future. And we're going to be alongside an 85-year-old Andrea Karam. Who is that woman? Where are you? Who are you surrounded by? What is the legacy that you've left here in your 85 years? And what is the predominant feeling in your being?
So I see myself at 85 living in an amazing house, very white and minimalist, with a lot of light in front of the ocean. I love the ocean. And I see myself with my loved ones and with my family. And I have created a lot of wealth and a lot of impact in this world, where I've helped I've helped many people on their path to living their full potential and to really embodying their full essence. And I've helped many kids that are wanting and that are now having a better education. So I've done a lot of work in the fields of human potential, in the field of education, and in the fields of sustainability. I really, a lot of my path and my mission is related to the protection and to living in harmony with the earth. And so I see a lot of work being done in those fields. And I feel very, very happy and very content and peaceful, satisfied. Like this was a life well lived, and I did my best, and I'm happy and I'm grateful, and thank you for this life. And I really want to give back, and through my own experiences and through everything I get to live, what I want to do is to help others live lives really of true meaning, true success, and happiness.
And I would just like to take you to take one moment, Andrea, just to close your eyes if you feel comfortable and step into the embodiment of that 85-year-old woman by the ocean, surrounded by loved ones and family, so satisfied in the legacy you've created. Embody that 85-year-old woman, feel into her, and I'll bring us back to the present. And that 85-year-old woman, she whispers a message into your ear now, present to present day. Andrea, what does she say? What does she share to you?
Yeah, I heard, the first thing I heard is love yourself and love others.
Powerful advice for us all. And one last question that came to my mind as you answered that. What would you yourself, current day Andrea, advise a fellow hero on the path at that crossroads of should and must? They're feeling that the call in their heart, they're feeling their intuition pull them towards their dream, whether that be travel to Costa Rica or take that yoga training or dance or create, but they're stuck on that rigid road of should. I should do this because this is what is safe. This is what I've been told by society, parents, school, culture, the corporate world, consumerism that I should be focused on. What advice would you share with that fellow soul at that crossroads of should versus must?
Yeah, what comes to mind is I would ask them a question. I would ask them, how would it feel like to give yourself the gift of feeling fully alive? And let that question guide you.
That's something that we could all reflect upon. How would that feel to be fully alive, to have that feeling of being fully alive?
Yes.
And then step into that place. And as we do, the world unfolds in front of us as it ought to be, as it must. Tom, last closing words of reflection from you.
Yeah, very inspiring all that you said here, and your vibration is so high. Since the last time I saw you in the other class, you're just lit up, and yeah, just living the best life. Best life for yourself, and for me, I want to look more with how nature plays with you, like you mentioned. I never really thought of it like that, and I'm really gonna sit with that and look for that in life, to where I see, you know, life, interacting with me, because I never looked at it like that. Yeah. But thank you so much for all that you shared here.
Thank you,
Appreciate it.
Tom. Appreciate it.
For people wanting to connect with you, Andrea, they can connect you with on Instagram at Andrea_Karam, Karam. And there you have a link that links you to all the different programs and coaching services that you offer. Any last things from you, Andrea?
Well, thank you so much. I loved being here and having this conversation with you guys. And your questions are so thoughtful. Like so many times I'm like, what a good question.
Thank you. To close every episode, as y'all know, we bring our fist in, a choice to step into the winner circle. Boom. Yeah. All right. And that's a wrap on today's call, you guys. Thank you so much. Proud of
Thank
you both. Proud of us all.